What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's What's on Kickstarter. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the great, good, and not so good decks new to Kickstarter this week. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And hit the bell.
I gotta say, Steve, I feel like we're getting back into full swing this year with Kickstarter campaigns. I feel like we had, like 10 last week? We have another 11 this week. Feels like we're really hitting that stride for the year. I feel like later in the year, we always get that rush of like 20 decks a week, but even 10.
It'll be exciting to see that week hit us 20 decks. It's been a while since then.
I know. I don't miss those days, dude. 10's still a lot. Like, it shocks me when 10 decks come out in a week. So
yeah, but you know what? With this different format, it might be a little different.
Yeah, who knows? Might be a little more concise, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I have to say, there are some fun decks this week, and I'm really looking forward to them. I think everyone's going to enjoy what's out there. I mean, there's some really good options this week. There's some really big names out there. There's also some decks that I personally would probably avoid. But if you want to know what Steve and I are going to be backing, make sure to stick around to the end and find out. And while you're at it, make sure to leave a comment as well and let us know what decks you're interested in, because we always love to hear from you guys and let us know, about the campaigns you're backing, whether they be playing cards, coins, coffee machines, or whatever it happens to be. Ready to
Dude, let's dive in.
Let's do it, man. Let's check out this week's first great campaign, which is the Trash and Burn deck from Howlin Jacks. Yeah. I gotta say, man.
Whoa,
yeah, Bo Kremer. This is a great deck here, and I love what Bo's trying to do with this, what Bo and Andy are trying to do. The idea behind this deck is obviously a deck that you can use and abuse and toss, which I think, especially for people who go through a lot of cards, whether they be cardists or magicians, probably less so on the collector's side, you really find that you wear out cards fast, and not everyone has easy access necessarily to the standard bicycle deck, or wants cards that look like a standard bicycle deck. This hits a fun kind of medium of custom cards that are still highly affordable. So far, diving into it, the story's great, ties into people who had previously back the Ristretto deck, really builds out that feel for what Trash and Burn is all about. And it even gets into the whole fun aspect here about their garbage truck, which I'm excited to see further down. Perfect hitting on the features right there. Printed by Sunwell Packing, which is an unknown printer in the card community, but I do know that a lot of research went into this deck. And then fulfilled by Wounded Corner in the US and Gamblers for International. Awesome.
I know them.
Yeah. Designs, what do we have here? Dude, this is like I love the fact that this really is a fun, fully custom deck, but it's meant to be something you use regularly. So it's almost a little counter to like what a collector's mentality is there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely Bo, which is awesome. And I think it's cool because you literally can use it to throw cards, and you can just hack it to death, and you don't have to worry about it because they are so cheap.
Yeah, no, which is really cool. And I think the one cool thing about this too, and we'll check it out in the price point, is obviously with inexpensive cards in mind, the more you buy, the less expensive they become, because you would want to stockpile these, especially if you're going to burn through, a deck a day, throwing them into the weeds or something.
Thrown into the weeds?
I mean, I don't know, man. People could be throwing cards outside. They land in the physical weeds. And then as the jokers here, you got Bo and Andy here. Andy being the creative designer and Bo being just the lovable Bo. But also Bo being the idea man also behind a lot of this. Andy does all the design work and Bo does the creative aspects of it as well. And I like the fact that even the number cards though are custom but still relatively standard looking, so you have a different feel to the indices and pips on it, but they look like a deck of cards. You're not like shocked by this stuff. That nice under pressure there, handles well. Not bad, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it looks like it handles well, and it'll be good to see, when I get the deck, how they feel, and I know,
we gotta play Bo's little video here with the. I love it. So for anyone
each one
out
of those
there,
can be hand painted.
I know, which is crazy. They're only doing 20 of them, but dude, it looks so dope. For anyone out there who has kids who are always playing with their cards, this is a great thing to pick up so that your kids can play with your dump truck or your garbage truck and leave your cards alone. I love it. One pimped garbage truck, 12 decks,
So good.
one flat pack dumpster box. 3 mini toy garbage bins. That is too creative and such an awesome add-on to see in the community because it's not something we usually see. And of course, he's got the sticker packs, ties on the add-ons as well, which I absolutely love. And then even gets into the idea that Bo, obviously being a magician, has created some great stuff. You know, we've reviewed Loki. You can check it out in the corner up there. But it's cool that he's including some of these as potential add-ons. Overload. Love it. Absolutely love it. Got some merch here. We'll have to find out from Bo how the merch goes. And you will notice there are no stretch goals on this. But again, I think based on the simplicity of the design and the campaign, stretch goals probably wouldn't make as much sense. It may also be something that maybe comes in the future depending on how it goes. But very cool. Has good risks and challenges there. What are we looking at?
What are we looking at price-wise?
$14 shipped.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with that. $14 shipped. And I think the really cool thing about it is taking a look at it here, which I love the titles there. The full load for a brick. So you got a full garbage load. Dude, you're looking at $85 for a brick. So you're coming in at like $7 and change a deck.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's phenomenal. That really is a great price point for something that's still eye-catching and good quality, but at the same time meant to just be burned through.
Yeah.
Dude, this is a great campaign. I'm excited to see it. Already funded, so congrats to Bo and Andy on this. Love to see some more funding on this because I do think there's a lot of potential with this deck. So for anyone out there looking for a good EDC that you can beat up and not be too worried about, this is a fun deck for sure.
Yeah, you can throw it in the weeds, be good to go.
Yeah, there you go. Throw it in the weeds, absolutely. And for this week's first good deck, we have the Rising Sun playing cards from Mr. Lambert. So this is actually the second deck from Mr. Lambert, and I have to say the one thing I'm really excited about for this second campaign is the comparison between his first campaign and this campaign is night and day. I really think he took a lot of feedback to heart and really made sure to build this campaign out in a more complete package. Still a great step going from probably a needs help on the first one to a good on this one. Slowly working his way to a great campaign, so I'm excited to see that. Jump right into it here. We have a pretty reasonable goal for a single deck printed by USPCC. Maybe a little low on the shipping side depending on how many actually get printed, but we can see printed by USPCC, fulfilled by Gambler's Warehouse, and additional copies available through add-ons. Interesting little tidbit to put there. The other thing I would say too is that having that as your first part of your story doesn't immediately attract me to the deck. You want to make sure that that first line of whatever you're putting on your campaign is a good hook. You really want to tie people into this and get them maybe not sold in one line, but curious if nothing else. So let's roll down into this a little bit more. Talks about the artists, not bad. If you're into this Japanese artwork style, this is a really vibrant and beautifully done deck.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, I really dig the style of it.
Like to see bigger images, you know, just a little larger so we can kind of see the detail in there. It looks like it's really colorful and has a lot of detail that, you know, we're missing in those images. And
the one thing I have to say, like, well, I think it's good that they include the artists on this. There is no actual story.
Yeah.
The art on these cards is taken from classic works by some of the most influential Japanese artists in history. These include, and then it shows the card. Okay, cool. Like, it talks a little bit about it, but I feel like your personal motivation for making this deck would make it a much more approachable story. Because as it stands right now is like, I appreciate Japanese art. Not familiar with any artists. So unless I know who these artists are, it's not something that's going to immediately like, oh yeah, I love this person. Let me check out these cards. Really making it a personally connectable story is very important here. So while there is to some extent a story, I think it could use some bolstering. 100% agree with Steve as well. The fact that the images need to be bigger, this, especially for such an intricate design, you want to be able to see it. This is one of my biggest qualms actually with Kickstarter in general, is I feel like these images should all be clickable so that they can expand and be zoomed, make it a little more feature rich on that end. So that's a Kickstarter thing. But with that in mind, it's something that I think people need to account for is you can make these clickable and make them load on another website, or you can just make them bigger in place here. Like the Joker is and the back design are the biggest cards here, but all of these are
so intricate. Yeah, that's a good size. You can put them all four of them across that size image and it'll be perfect.
100% agreed. Back design's really cool. I really dig the style of it. It's very minimalist, but brings in that thematic feel to it.
Yeah, it's
really
fun.
interesting with the box as well. But the thing to me, again, like I said, I just really want to know the story behind all of this. I feel like there's so much that's not being conveyed about why you decided to go with this deck. Limited add-on, the Raven, which was the previous deck. Risks and challenges, to me, this is another big one here. Manufacturing fulfillment is at risk for delays due to the unpredictable world we've seen over the past year. That's a very true statement, but how could that potentially tie in with this specific campaign? The one thing to remember with risks and challenges is they're specific to your campaign. And so if you're going to talk about the state of the world for the past year and how it could impact manufacturing and fulfillment, make sure you say the project's manufacturing, the project's fulfillment. Tie it in specifically to this project, because right now that is a very true blanket statement. I also think as a second campaign, it's very much a underdeveloped risks and challenges. There's a lot more that can go wrong with manufacturing and things you can tie into, like we're using a different manufacturer for the tuck versus the decks themselves, and there could be delays there. Be over inclusive on the risks and challenges, because that way if someone comes back and says, hey, you know, there was a delay with this the tuck printing, you can be like, oh yeah, we covered that in the risks and challenges. You want to cover as much as you can in the risks and challenges to make sure that people are aware of these potential delays ahead of time.
What are we looking at for price?
We are looking at $20 shipped. All things considered, I'd say this would probably fall better into that 16 to 18 price range. No real embellishment on the tuck that was visible, so relatively standard tuck. Very well could be printed by USPCC. The cards themselves are very beautiful, but I do think that unless there's some sort of metallic ink or other aspects to it, 16 to 18 is probably the price range on this one.
Yeah, I mean 18 I think would be a nice fair price.
The artwork is beautiful, so I do hope to see this fund, but I do think the campaign itself needs a little bit of a boost, all things considered. So hopefully for Mr. Lambert's third campaign, we see a great campaign coming out of him.
Good luck.
Right, and for this week's first Needs Help campaign, we have the Bicycle, the Riders of the Apocalypse playing cards.
That's a lot.
That is a long title. I'm like just saying it again in my head. It is a long title. All things considered, very much a collector's deck. We can see this is from Ace Collectible Cards. Created 15 campaigns in the past, many of which have been successfully funded. The interesting thing about this to me, though, is, again, this just goes to show that over time, campaign structure evolves. And looking back, Ace Collectible Cards has created decks since probably 2018. But over the past 3 years, people want to know a lot more information about the deck from the jump. So one of the things that stands out to me here talks a little bit about the feedback aspect of it. You've asked, we've answered. After your feedback and demand for our backs, we've combined volumes 1 and 2 of the Riders of the Apocalypse deck. Awesome. Ties in immediately to people who have given this feedback, but it doesn't necessarily tie it into everybody. I think it's a good kind of like lead in, but you need to then immediately jump into this deck, which is what they do, and I think that's good. The story on this, to me, is a little bit lacking. I mean, it's there, but again, what's the motivation? You know, your backers asked for this, but where did it start before that? The backers didn't come up with this idea themselves and then you created it. This is something that you already had as an idea. Talk about that. Make that personal connection and then really bring that throughout the entire campaign, because I know one of the other things here is just a ton of images and no text. Like a ton of big images, no text. Also,
and I really want to start seeing people, I guess, explain in the campaigns a little bit more. Like this says it's for Magic as well. No magician is going to use this for a Magic deck. Like start being more concise with your wording, you know, and this is definitely a collector's deck.
Yeah, this is 100% a collector's deck.
Right.
Also, feature section missing on this one definitely would be helpful. It shows right here that it's going to be printed by USPCC, but that's literally in a parenthesized footnote. Like, mention who's printing, mention who's fulfilling. Obviously, being a bicycle deck, you know it's going to be USPCC, but don't also rely on assumptions. You know, you want to be specific about these details. How many are being printed? What stock is it being printed on? Who's going to be fulfilling? Is there going to be any embellishment on the tuck? It looks relatively standard, but Are there any stretch goals to add foil or things like this that might appeal more so to collectors? Limited edition deck. So cool, there's a limited edition deck. What?
Oh, it's a special tuck design.
An ultra low run of 500 or less decks. So what's the difference?
It sounds like it's just a tuck box.
Well, yeah, it definitely does, but like what's the difference even between the tuck? It looks like this is blue and the other one's gray.
That looks blue to me too, but
yeah, I can't, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to really bring these details to the forefront so people are aware of what they're getting, because ultimately this is actually a really intricate collector's deck that I think could be really popular, but 165 backers in this market is just cracking the surface of what the potential actually is for a deck like this. And I think if you build out a campaign here that hits all the criteria that people are looking for, you're going to have a much better chance of really expanding beyond 165 backers into potentially 200, 300, 400 backers even.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How much what's the price we're looking at for this?
Looking at $24 ship. So again, that's pricey for a standard deck, all things considered. 18 to 20 on this, being a full collector's deck with fully custom artwork. The other thing too, and I'll just say this, the last thing you see shouldn't be the back design. Like, the back design should be so much farther up in this campaign. It just lacks flow.
Is it a white back design?
It looks like it. Or it may just be
interesting. But
like also then fully colored front cards.
That's weird.
It's very strange. We've gained lots of experience, great experience and knowledge from our last successful playing card campaign and other card campaigns. We further improved and enhanced the quality of our decks and continue working to improve and give better service to all our dear backers. This is not a risks and challenges. That's a statement about your growth as an organization.
Company,
yeah. Risks and challenges need to be things that are going to potentially go wrong with this campaign. Something to consider there is you do want risks and challenges. There's no reason not to have them. They are integral to people understanding the potential downfalls of backing a campaign. And it allows transparency.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, it's being printed by USPCC. Guaranteed it's going to be delivered late.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I mean, when are they? Well, they're saying December, so that's pretty far out.
That's possible.
Yeah. So, but all things considered, yeah, like, they need to be really cognizant of what the risks and challenges actually should be. Like, this is a templatized Kickstarter campaign that probably worked for the first campaign, but all things considered in this day and age, this is not a good template anymore. So, yes, while this is funded, I do hope that in future campaigns, Ace Collectible cards, you decide to really put more of yourself into the campaign. So,
yeah, because you can get double the backers, especially sticking a bicycle logo on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, good luck to you. Congratulations on funding, but really consider how you want to continue growing your brand. All right, so let's check out what else is on the block for this week. For another great deck, we have the Kingdom and Kinghood Playing Cards Collection Box Sets from Artisan Playing Cards.
And TCC.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I mean, basically, yeah, same,
yeah.
There we go. Really dope box, really interesting to see. I think the one thing that stands out the most here is they always go very hard on their advertising or their marketing, which comes off like embellishment sometimes, and I think comes off a little bit disingenuous. And to me, you know, we've gone over 100 times of proofing and technical testing costs more than $100,000. Who's spending $100,000 testing playing cards on a campaign that makes $187,000? Like,
yeah, that's just
if
crazy.
That's true, please explain all the things you went through, because if nothing else, that's going to bolster your dedication to this, and people are going to be stunned by it. You'd probably even get more backers. But if that is just like marketing smoke, like, lay off it, because it really comes off disingenuous. And I'll be honest about that. I love this deck. I think it's great what they're doing with it. But to me, that just feels like sneaky and cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be totally honest. I literally, when I read that, I totally ignore it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, whatever. You say what you got to say. Sell your decks. That's fine, but I don't believe it.
And like, to me, yeah, like it builds a small bit of distrust that you don't want to have on a Kickstarter campaign. So again, great campaign, really well put together. Price point on this is great, but think about those marketing ploys that you run with, because sometimes they may do a little more harm than good. Good luck.
And their campaigns are like miles long.
Yes,
too.
This thing is long. Longest campaign of the year for sure, but good luck to on this one. Next up for another great campaign this week, we have the Dominion Exquisite playing cards from Jody Eklund. So
everybody knows Jody.
Everyone knows Jody. Black ink branded, absolutely amazing designer. The one thing that stands out to me on this campaign, this is a great one. Price point is phenomenal, but there's this video here showing a hollow back design, which I'll be honest, looks awesome. This back design is not included in the campaign, and to me, it's almost a little bit confusing unless you read the note here. The example that I am showing this video is an old sample I did using holographic foil for the back design. The most current will use silver foil, and the back design has changed. So this video is literally irrelevant.
Useless.
Irrelevant. Yeah, it's absolutely irrelevant to the campaign, especially because now I really want a foil back design. That looked dope.
Dude, I look at that and I'm like, oh, dude, the holographic foil's dope.
Yeah.
But this deck is not what it's going to look like. Okay, cool. Then I don't want this deck.
Yeah, and like that's, I think, again, great campaign, but like I would nix that video or include that hollow foil. So good luck, Jody, killing it as always, and always excited to see how great you do with these new campaigns. I love your artwork, but wrap the video.
Good luck.
Good luck. Next up for another great campaign this week, we have the Game of Spades First Anniversary Expert deck. So, by Aaron Parker, another great deck this week. The Game of Spades last year did phenomenal. Aaron really puts a lot of energy and effort into this, and I'm really excited to see the feel of the deck. You know, I know the one thing that stood out to Steve on this is it's very reminiscent almost of the Black Artisan from Theory 11 style-wise.
That backtalk box right there looks exactly like
it is very reminiscent of it, but honestly, I love the artwork on this. I think this is a really cool campaign. Great to see it coming together. The one thing I would say is I'd almost like to see the features section a little bit higher up on it, you know, probably before the cards. Put it at the bottom of the story section. And throw in who's going to be fulfilling on this as well. I do believe you're fulfilling yourself, but either way, it never hurts to put fulfillment in the features and put the features right before you really start getting into the nitty-gritty so that people have the ability to catch a quick snapshot of what they're interested in and move on. But good luck with this, man. Deck looks awesome. Excited to see this fund. And next up for another good deck this week, we have the Mental Models playing cards from Andrew F. Why? Dives right into a good story. Interesting deck. This is another one of those kind of informational decks. Great way to put it. I was gonna say self-help, but that didn't feel right. Really interesting informational deck. They do talk about the printing on this. It's going to be printed by WJPC, but I do think one of the big things for this that would help it go from a good to a great campaign would be really talking about the fulfillment on it, realizing that you don't need to put in like the 310 GSM German Black Core and the size of it. People know what a poker size deck's going to look like. Stock wise from WJPC, you could probably use one of their like names there, something along those lines. All things.
And stop yelling at me in like death colored, like red headers.
Red and
like,
black.
It's just very, it's just uneasy. It makes me uneasy.
Yeah. I mean, and it raises a good point, too, about color usage in Kickstarter and how you really should take that into consideration. Even if your theme of your deck is red and black, there probably would have been maybe black headers would have been a little more soothing.
Yeah, they're just uncomfortable to me. You know?
So,
and that's why.
Fair enough. Good luck.
Good luck.
And let's see what else we have for another good campaign this week. The Deadly Pirates luxury playing card. So this is actually a relaunch of a previous campaign that in the previous version we had called this a help and a beware. The one thing I will say about this campaign is they have included more information about it, and the price point actually makes a lot more sense. Originally, the price point for a gilded full foil deck was way below anything that was reasonable. The few things that do stand out to us on this one, though, is that the goal for a full foil gilded deck with 1,000 print run at $3,000 is extremely, extremely low. So unless they're,
I mean, let me give you a little hint. Their ultra thin Viper finish is $3.44 for 1,000.
Yeah. So you add foil
there you go.
And gilding to that, you're probably looking at closer to, geez, maybe a $12, $13 deck. So printing 1,000 of them, you're looking at a minimum price point of probably over $10,000, and that's not including shipping.
You should have 10 as your goal. But you know, I mean, obviously we don't know the circumstances, and maybe they're funding it themselves.
Yeah, and if that's, and that raises a very good point though too, is if you are going to be self-funding a portion of it, you should put that in the campaign as well to waylay any fears that people may have about a suspiciously low goal like this. With that in mind too, fulfilled by gamblers, printed by legends, I think that's great to see that they have that information there. The deck price for a full foil gilded deck, free shipping on it. That's great. $37. That's actually a really reasonable price point for this one. But to me, the other thing that really lacks on this is there's just no story. There's these little blurbs next to the cards, which probably could have been taken from Wikipedia, all things considered, but it doesn't talk about the motivation or the story of the deck itself. And I do think there's a lot of potential on this for people who dig pirates and the artwork. Telling that story is just going to make people more comfortable with it and get you beyond that 50 backers mark. So, all things considered, based on the low goal, I'd almost still throw a Beware on this. Even though it's a good campaign, I'm going to still throw a Beware on this. But good luck to you, and good luck to everyone back in this deck. And for another Needs Help this week, we have the Sad Panda Chinese playing cards from Jeremy Hills. The Chinese numbers on each card, really interesting campaign, dives right into it, has a video with it, it's always great to see. To me, the story on this is one of the biggest things that's lacking here. The story, for the most part, is about this little blurb here. You have a feature section that's great. It's actually being printed by MPC, but doesn't say that on the features, which to me should be right there. M31 Casino quality stock, we know is MPC. Who's going to be printing and fulfilling? Right down here, it gets into it. Throw that in the features. Call them out as the printer and the fulfiller. It doesn't hurt. With that in mind too, the biggest thing that stands out to me as a red flag on this is the risks and challenges. We have already been able to successfully produce several iterations of the card games and feel confident that we will be able to complete the project. This is a deck of cards, not necessarily a card game. Second off, if we go look at the creator and we see what they've created, they have 3 unsuccessful campaigns in the past month and no successful campaign. So my concern then becomes, what is actually this risks and challenges talking about? And why is it not being discussed that the creator is really churning through a lot of cards here, but not actually hitting the mark? Like, to me, it's better to step back to the drawing board and try and refine an idea you have for relaunch so that you can get a successful campaign than to keep throwing ideas that just seem to be missing the mark. So at the end of the day, while there is some potential here, I do think it needs a little bit of a tweak. And for this week's last Needs Help campaign, we have the Spielkort med Volva Fortengler. I apologize because I do not speak Dutch, I'm assuming. But with that in mind, interesting deck. The whole premise behind this, after some Google Translate work, is to break the taboo around genitals. Makes perfect sense. I get it. The one thing I will say about this is more pictures of the cards, a little bit more of a story to tie it all together, and really tying in the risks and challenges. It's an interesting first deck. Also, price point on this thing, even though it's only being shipped to Denmark, $36 a deck. That's crazy expensive. You'd be probably better off going for a larger print run with that sort of goal and going through a reputable manufacturer, because you'd be able to lower the price point and hopefully then be able to actually allow worldwide shipping and get a broader audience across the board for this. So good luck. Definitely needs a help on it, but if it doesn't fail or it doesn't succeed the first time, definitely bring it back to the drawing board and put it back out there. And for another Needs Help deck this week, we have the Refine and Play Tarot deck, which I'll be honest, man, I absolutely love the concept of this. For anyone who's into tarot but also likes playing with cards, really cool that you can basically pull the Major Arcana out of the poker-sized deck and use it as a standard playing card, and it still has some of the tarot artwork on it, which is really neat. Couple points for me with this one is I feel like the story is just a little too blocked up towards the top, and then it doesn't really flow through the rest of it. So building out the campaign in a way where the story flows a little bit better, maybe throwing it interdispersed between the images of the cards would be helpful. The other thing too is that this is actually 2 decks, but from the top aspect of it, you don't really realize that there's another tarot until you get to the bottom where it talks about the Neutral Vibes tarot deck. I think that would actually make it a little more reasonable to have such a high goal there and make people realize that from the jump. Right. So Steve, what are you backing this week, man?
100% Trash and Burn, and also Kingdom and Kinghood.
Nice, man. Dude, honestly, absolutely great decks. I'd probably throw Dominion in the mix on my side. I do love Jody's work. I think does a really good job with it. I'm hoping that the tucks on Dominion are a little better than the ones on Sovereign. I wasn't thrilled about that, but I do still love his artwork. 100% back in my book. I gotta say, man, it was an interesting week. I think there was a lot of potential with some of these decks. All right, man, all the fun stuff now. Are you ready, Steve, to take a look at this week's fun campaigns?
I am totally ready. Let's jump into it.
I gotta say, though, one thing about fun campaigns, man, diving through all the Kickstarter, I realize how much stuff there really is on Kickstarter.
Dude, let's be honest. Diving through the campaigns, it's real fun to see how much shit is on Kickstarter.
Yeah, how much, yes. And the crazy thing is, like, looking at the stats on Kickstarter, not to get a little nerdy here, about 50% of all campaigns back, which means that about 50% of all campaigns don't back. That's a lot of campaigns that have been run over the course of Kickstarter's life, and I think it goes to show that, like, really doing the due diligence ahead of time for marketing aspects and thinking about and getting feedback from communities is super helpful to ensure a successful or more likely to be successful campaign. But with that in mind, man, I think we found some interesting one this week after wading through lots of just stuff I wouldn't want to buy. So,
and I wouldn't even buy it if you gave me the money to buy.
There you go. Well, let's take a look at my fun campaign for this week. I picked something a little bit more on the artistic side, and I actually kind of dug it. But let's check this thing out here. We got the Martian Landscapes, which I have to say, not a huge campaign so far. Only 23 backers on it. It's hit its goal, which I think is great. It's about 400% over its goal. But dude, for people who are really into space, this is such a really neat concept to have something you could hang on your wall that takes identifiable features of the Martian landscape and puts it on your wall. You know, I think it's a very niche category of people who would be into this. But I do think that it's there. People, from an artistic point of view, love crazy stuff. This stuff is really kind of neat, and with Mars being such a hot topic these days, I get it, man.
Hey, how much does the stuff cost?
You're looking at about 115 shipped per model. So, a little on the pricier side, but again, being art, maybe not the end of the world there. It looks like if you get all three, you save a little bit. You get it for $298 shipped.
Well, how big are they?
Let's see, man.
Does it say dimension-wise?
Yeah, because the pictures are tough to tell.
Yeah, they look tiny. Oh, there we go.
5x7. So they are pretty tiny, all things considered.
Wow, 5x7.
But the other thing I will say about it, and I don't know if the models themselves or if this was just the prototypes here, but they look like they're being hand painted. So these are all handmade, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm really I mean, again,
that's your thing, man. That's pretty cool.
Like, again,
5x7 small.
It is small. I'm not saying I would necessarily put on my wall, but like, I actually like the style of this, and I'd love to see this carry on into other things like features of Earth and features of other planets and features of other aspects of nature. It would be really cool in this style where you have a lot of that topographical depth, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool campaign. I enjoyed this one, man. Let's see what we got on Steve's end here. For Steve's fun campaign, we have the ChopChucks, the amazing pocket-sized skill toy and chopsticks.
Dope.
Sure.
This is super cool. I grew up and to this day love martial arts, and I've always loved, nunchucks and Chinese stars, but and I eat a lot of Japanese food and Asian food. So having a pair of your own chopsticks is always great, especially when you go into restaurants and you get those wooden ones and you get the little shards of
bamboo,
wood. These are just really cool. It's kind of like a fidget toy in a way, and it's a little toy when you sitting on the couch and just chilling out, and then when you want to eat, put them together, man. I think it's dope. You can get them in stainless steel or titanium, and they're definitely reasonable price. I think it's like 37 and $48.
$38 shipped for a set of stainless steel ChopChucks.
Yeah, and then the titanium ones are, I think, are like $9 more.
Yeah.
It's dope. It's dope.
Sure. This is something that I remember, like, you remember that magazine you'd get as a kid, like things you never knew existed? And you just open it up and it was just tons of like weird stuff that no one, it was cool stuff when you're an 8-year-old. I feel like this is something that definitely appeals to like that 8-year-old in all of us.
100%. Dude, my girlfriend loves chopsticks, loves having chopsticks. This will be good for her. And then when she's not using them, I can
hit yourself in the face with them.
Myself in the head. Exactly.
I love it.
Perfect. 100%.
Oh my God, dude. Absolutely love it. That is too funny.
Dude, 713 backers on that campaign too.
It's because there are 713 people who as a kid, their parents wouldn't let them buy things from things you never knew existed. And now, they're living with disposable income. Oh my gosh. Well, everybody, thank you so much for checking out this week's What's on Kickstarter. Make sure to let us know in the comments down below which you would be backing this week, whether it be cards, ChopChucks, Martian Landscapes, D&D gaming stuff, I don't know, whatever it may be out there. There's so much on Kickstarter, and we always love to hear what you guys are backing. So make sure to drop a comment down below, and while you're at it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Thanks.